And joining us now live via Skype is Maxime Bernier, the founder of the People's Party. Welcome back to the program. It's nice to have you again.
Thank you, Ezra. I'm very pleased to be with you.
Well, a lot has happened since we last spoke. I think the last time we interviewed you was when you were running for the leadership of the Conservative Party, and you missed that just by less than a percent. Tell me about your decision to break away from the Conservative Party and start the People's Party. Why didn't you stay in and try and fight for change from within and maybe be there if Andrew Scheer fails in the next election? How come you decided to break away?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. And I tried to push our ideas a year after the leadership. As you know, I didn't win with 49% of the vote. But at the end, the grassroots people, they like our bold ideas and what we want for the future of this country, based on 4 principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect. So after the leadership, I tried to have that be part of the platform of the Conservative Party of Canada for the next election. But I was not successful, and I had a phone conversation with Andrew 10 days before I resigned, and he told me that the party was not didn't want to take any of our ideas, and so for the next campaign, for the next platform, and in 2019. And after that, I had 2 choices: to stay in politics or to go back to the private sector. But I decided to stay in politics and fight for what I believe. I wasn't able to see myself and running for the Conservative Party of Canada on a platform that I don't believe. So we had the platform, and so I decided to start the party, and up to now it's going very well.
Now, you outlined the 4 principles of your party, but those words are pretty general: respect, freedom, things like that. I think a lot of our viewers like you. They support you, they love your style, they love your principled stand, but they also really want to win. They really want to beat Justin Trudeau. And a lot of our viewers remember the great efforts to unite the right. Can I ask you, on behalf of our viewers who like you but are skeptical of this decision, those 4 principles you talked about, I bet if Andrew Scheer were right here, and of course he isn't right here because he refuses to talk to the rebel, he would say he agrees with those 4 principles. Other than the dairy cartel, what are the specific differences between your People's Party and the Conservative Party? Because I can name that dairy cartel. I think it's an important one. But what are the other differences?
Well, we want to have a debate on the equalization formula. I think it's important for Canada. It's important for everybody. That formula, it is unfair. And it is unfair also for provinces who are receiving money because there's no incentive for these provinces to develop their own natural resources. So I'm the only politician who speak about that. I'm the only politician who speak about getting rid of corporate welfare. And I'm serious when I'm speaking about that. It is not a slogan. We want to be sure to abolish the around $5 billion that the federal government is giving to big corporations. We want to stop that and lower taxes for every single entrepreneur in this country. We think that it is not fair to tax a small business entrepreneur in Calgary and using their money, that money, to give that to a big corporation like GM and Bombardier. So we are very serious about that. And also we want to have a debate about the healthcare system in our country. We want to respect the Constitution. We want to be sure that everybody will be able to have good healthcare services by, first of all, stopping to tax Canadians and giving that money to provinces. We want to lower the taxes at the federal level and let the province tax for their own responsibility, like healthcare. So and provinces will have an incentive to develop a new way to offer that services to their people. So with maybe more private and other ways, like in other countries, like in France, like in Sweden, like in other European countries where they have a better system than in Canada. So politicians are afraid to have this kind of discussion. So that's a big difference between our party and the other one. We're not afraid to have debate about that. Mm-hmm. And we will take the time to explain our policies to Canadians and that's why we will be able to have support. And the other part of your question was about being able to be the alternative. And I think we would be able to be the alternative because, first of all, we have a lot of support from former conservatives who are coming with us, but also from people who voted liberals before, people who voted for Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien a couple of years ago because they believe in a balanced budget and lower taxes. So that's in our plan to balance the budget in 2 years. They are welcome in our party because they cannot see themselves in the Liberal Party of Canada right now. Mm-hmm. And I had some people who voted NDP. They said, Maxime, I want to join your party and be with you because you want to get rid of corporate welfare and you want to abolish the cartel of supply management. That is a regressive tax on the poor. So we can attract these kind of people, but also 30% of Canadians didn't vote at the last election because they don't believe in politicians anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think we can have some of these people also. Mm-hmm. So we have to prove I have to prove to my former conservative colleagues that we will be the alternative. And I think it's starting very well. We're around 10 or 12 or 15 the vote right now, just in the beginning. We just have to increase that. And I can tell you that in a couple of months from now, we will be the alternative. And if you want to beat the Trudeau government, people will have to vote for us and not for Andrew Scheer.
Now, it's interesting. I was making notes as you talked about equalization reform, corporate welfare reform, healthcare. A lot of those ideas remind me of the early days of the Conservative Party, or more to the point, the Reform Party and the Canadian Alliance. It sounds to me like you're suggesting that today's Conservative Party under Andrew Scheer is really a party of the establishment and not a party of insurgent ideas. Is that a fair assessment of your view?
Absolutely. It's a fair assessment. They're liberal light, That's why they don't have any ideas. They don't want to discuss these reform because they need to do polling and focus group. And after that, they will come with a policy. They try to please everybody. And in politics, when you try to please everybody, you don't please everybody. Mm-hmm. So, we believe in real conservative reform, and that's what we want to do. And that will be the only way for having a smaller government in Ottawa and a government that will respect the people. Mm-hmm. So that's a big difference between us and the Liberal and the Conservative. And you're right. The establishment at the Conservative, they don't want to open these debates, but Canadians, they're ready for it, and they know if we want to have a freer and a more prosperous country, we'll need to have these kind of reform. Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you about one more area of politics, because corporate welfare, that should be pretty easy for any conservative to support reforms, and healthcare is no longer the third rail of politics that it was maybe 15 years ago, because people know it's not working. But there is one area of politics that I think the federal Conservatives and almost everyone else in the country, especially in the media, is terrified to talk about, and at least in English Canada, and that is open borders immigration, illegal immigrants, and especially the Islamic nature and effect of some of these migrants, whether it's the hijab or the full face obscuring niqab in public or in courts. These are subjects that I think people want to talk about, but if they even ask basic questions or raise concerns, they're called racist or whatnot. Now, you've engaged in some of these conversations on Twitter. Is that part of your People's Party as well? Do you have views on immigration, multiculturalism, and integration and assimilation?
For sure, it is part of our platform. And I tweeted about that a couple of days ago. And, we need to, this country has been built with immigrants, and immigrants that are, they share the Western civilization values. And that's very important. So I don't want our country to be like in France, actually, right now, in Europe, where they have challenges with the integration of our new immigrants. We don't want that in Canada. So that is why we must have a debate about immigration. And I'm open for immigration, but I'm open with immigrants that will come here, like the one in the past who came here to share our Canadian values and our culture. They will come to our country. I want them to be able to have a job. I want them to be able to integrate our society. So that's why we need to have a debate on immigration. But the other parties, they don't want to have a debate about that. I think it's time to have this kind of debate.
My last interview with Andrew Scheer, and I think it's why he never came back, I asked him about some of the Syrian migrants. And I said, do you have any views on that? He said, well, we need to do security background checks. I said, that's true, but a lot of things won't show up in a security background check in someone from Syria. Questions about cultural compatibility, the equality of men and women, the treatment of minorities, the separation of mosque and state. I asked Andrew Scheer if he felt there ought to be any cultural fit tests. So not just a background police check, obviously. And he didn't answer me. Do you believe that we should have a test to make sure someone embraces Canadian values like the separation of mosque and state or the equality of men and women? I couldn't get an answer out of Andrew Scheer. Do you feel more confident on that question?
But first of all, as you know, Kelly Leach, during the leadership campaign for the Conservative Party of Canada, raised that issue, and she said that we need a test. So I'm open for ideas. I don't know how we will be sure that these people that are coming here are sharing our values and our principle, Western society values and principle. So is it by a test or another means? I don't know. I'm open for suggestion. Mm-hmm. Somebody told me, Maxime, if you ask for a test, they will tell you what you want to hear, mm-hmm. and it would be very difficult. Mm-hmm. So I'm open to find the best way to be sure that people who are coming in this country are coming for the real reason and are coming because they want to be in a country that is free, that it respects the rule of law, the equality between man and woman, the distinction between the church and politics. So that's important for us. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what would be the best way to be sure that these people are coming because they share our values and they want to be in a freer country. Mm-hmm. But what happened in the past, if you look at the past 65 years, 70 years, people, they were coming here and they were sharing our values. So maybe we need to improve our system, but we don't need to throw everything out and start from the beginning. Mm-hmm. What we did a couple of years ago, the point system, it's a good system. Maybe we must improve it. But I don't have the solution about it right now. Right. And I'm open. That's why I'm doing this debate. And I'm looking for solution or ideas from Canadians about it.
Thank you. I have just one more question on this. And again, even if you don't have a concrete answer, just the way you're thinking about it or your process is useful to me. I know that Justin Trudeau and Ahmed Hassan, the immigration minister, have talked about increasing the number of immigrants to Canada to 300,000 a year. I've also seen regular opinion polls that have gotten sharper against that. Less than 10% of Canadians, including according to the government's own polls, support an increase. Do you have any thoughts on the actual number? Should it be where it is now, around 250? Should it increase to 300? Should it be restricted? Do you have any views on that?
Yes. First of all, you're right that the Trudeau government, they want to have 310,000 people a year, new Canadians. They will increase that to 340,000 a year in 2 years from now. And they receive a report, the Barton report, and that report is asking for going up to 450,000 a year. So what I want us to go back on the average that we had, the average of immigrants that we had under Stephen Harper for the last 10 years that we were in power, the Conservatives were in power. So it's about 250,000 a year. So I think we must go back to that number and being sure to integrate these people. So that's my goal. And I'm the only politician who has a number. All the other one are afraid to have a number. So around 250,000 a year, I think it would be a good start. And, I'm in line with 49% of Canadians mm-hmm. that they think that there's too much immigration in our country. Mm-hmm. So, these people, I think they're right. Mm-hmm. So I'm not afraid to say a number.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for answering those policy questions. I'd like to shift gears. I'm grateful for your time. I want to cover two more subjects with you. I want to talk about two provincial election campaigns and ask your opinion about shifting politics. And then I want to finish up briefly on the CBC, because I know you've just put out a new statement on the subject. But let me talk about the election a couple days ago in New Brunswick. That the traditional parties, the Progressive Conservatives and the Liberals, they each got about 30% of the vote, but third parties got about 30% of the vote. There was the NDP, they only got 5%. The Green Party got about 12%, and there's a new party called, let me get this right, the People's Alliance, which sounds similar to your People's Party. It's right of center, it has new ideas, it's against corporate welfare. It actually sounded very similar to you guys, and they won the balance of power, and they got, I think, 13% of the vote. Do you think that these old routines and customs that you either voted Tory Liberal, I was surprised by the news there. Have you been following that? Do you know anything about this third party, the People's Alliance? What are your take on that?
But first of all, I didn't follow in details the election over there, but, I saw the result. And for me, it's an indication that people, are fed up with the old parties that are saying almost the same thing, and they're afraid to have real debates. But the most important, they use the people's money. When I'm saying they, the old parties, they're using the people's money to buy votes for special interest groups. They're doing that with the cartel of supply management at the federal level. So, and that way of doing politics, taxing people, and after that, giving that money to a special interest group for having their support, I think people are fed up with that. And that's not the way that we will do politics. We are doing politics for all Canadians, for the people of our country. That's why we are calling our party the People's Party of Canada. So I think people, it's a sign in New Brunswick. And for us, it's looking very good because we are at around 12% in the poll right now after 3 weeks. And we can just increase, and I hope we will, and we'll show to everybody that will be the right alternative, the alternative in 2019.
I want to shift to Quebec's provincial election, and I'm not expecting you to endorse one party or the other, although if you want to, let me know your thinking on that. I find it fascinating because I think, as an outsider, and I don't speak very good French, so I don't have a lot of information, but it looks to me like Quebec has more honest conversations about some of the cultural issues because Quebec has their French identity that they're trying to keep a hold of, so they think about it, they talk about it, they worry about it. Some people would say Quebec was the first ethnic nationalist jurisdiction in North America, in a way. And what do you make about the discussions in that campaign, and what do you make of the rise of the coalition Avenir Quebec? Are they a like-minded party to you? Do they share some views? I'd like your thoughts, and I'm not looking for you to weigh into that election, although feel free. I just want you to help teach the rest of the country what's going on there, and can it apply to the federal scene?
Yeah, I don't want to interfere in provincial jurisdiction, but what I can say, the coalition, the Coalition Avenir Québec, the CAQ, la coalition, they're tied in the poll right now with the Liberal, and we don't know what will happen in a week from now. But yes, you're right. They opened a discussion about immigration, and they're the only party who is saying right now in Quebec that we must have a little bit less immigration. And I think Quebecers are used to that debate. And in English Canada, we are having, and I'm starting that debate also. So the coalition, it's a kind of a right-wing party, but for me, being a right-wing in Quebec, it's a little bit a kind of a socialist party also. Mm-hmm. I don't know what will happen, but at least we have some discussion in Quebec about immigration, and it's going very well. Yeah. Nobody is saying that the leader of la CAQ is a racist. Nobody is saying that, and is having that open discussion. Mm-hmm. So I hope that we can have that open discussion also in Canada, mm-hmm. and I'm starting that debate right now.
Yeah, I'm very jealous because it seems like even if the mainstream media disagrees with the CAQ body and their leader, they at least hear him out and report what he says, and
Yeah.
They understand it's a legit, even if they disagree with him, they at least acknowledge it's a legitimate position. I'm jealous because I don't see that in English Canada. Do you agree that English Canada doesn't yet have the courage to have that same conversation?
But what I'm saying, it's the mainstream media.
Right.
I think they're not fair when we speak about that. But people, the credibility of journalists right now, it is not as high as it was 10 years ago.
Right.
And people, they can have their news. You're very popular, Ezra, and people like to hear what you're saying. And there's other media, the social media, and that's what we want to know. We want to appeal to the intelligence of people. And when the mainstream media, they were saying Maxime is a populist politician, I said, maybe yes, but I'm a smart populist politician because we have serious policies and we bring something on the table for having real debate that would be great for this country.
Right. Well, that's a very good point you make, is that I think English Canadians are ready for that conversation, but not the English Canadian media, which leads me to my last series of questions. And I thank you again for your time. But I've watched you very carefully over the last month, as so many Canadians have. And I'll be honest, one of my favorite things has been how you've been sparring with the mainstream media, especially with the state broadcaster. And I want to play a couple of clips, and you surely know the ones I'm talking about. When right before you started the People's Party, the CBC did a hit piece on you, and it was hosted by Rosemary Barton. There was another journalist involved. Let me play a very short clip, and then I'm going to read a tweet by Rosemary Barton. So let me just remind our viewers what I'm talking about. I know you know, Maxime, and then I'll like your feedback on this. So here's a short clip from a CBC attack on you that tries to link you to a Ku Klux Klan protest in Charlottesville. Take a look.
Youth will not!
Also significant is the timing. Bernier chose to send his messages on the first anniversary of the riots in Charlottesville, Virginia, a milestone for people who believe whites are under some kind of cultural attack.
We did reach out to Maxime Bernier today to see if he'd talk, Rosie, but he didn't respond.
Just an absolutely insane non sequitur. They're talking about you in Canada, and they cook up this conspiracy theory that you're setting your timing based on something that happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. Let me call you for your response in 1 second, but I want to show just very quickly the tweets that were exchanged between you and Rosemary Barton. You wrote on Twitter, and this is on August 16th, you wrote, "Just saw this report which implies a timing between my tweets last Sunday and some violent demonstration in the U.S. How do you know that I chose to send my messages on the first anniversary of the riots in Charlottesville? This is despicable fake news." And then Rosemary Barton wrote back, "How do we know you didn't time to coincide with that anniversary, given you won't give any interviews to anyone about anything you tweet? How about you answer some questions and defend your position in front of people? Then we can talk about what is fake. Thanks for watching." And then you wrote back, I'm just going to go a couple more here. You said, "Whether or not I give interviews, your job is to report facts, not unfounded and calumnious speculation. You admit you have no idea if there was a connection. I tweet almost every day and was not even aware of this event in the U.S. You were biased, unprofessional." And then the last comment by Rosemary Barton, "Any politician worth his salt would have known of that anniversary. I don't care what you tweet. I do care that you won't answer questions about. I report facts based on what people say and tweet. The interview request stands, and we can clear this all up anytime you like." Now, I said that in my own dramatic voice, Maxime, but I have to say, the mask fell off Rosemary Barton for a moment, and we saw her true nature as a radical partisan, not as a pretend neutral journalist. I was shocked by that exchange. What do you think of it now that a month has passed?
Yeah, no, it is crazy, And yes, you're right. She was a radical partisan, and that's a smear job that they tried to do. And, for me, the CBC, it's funded by us, by people's money, by Canadians, and there's no place for that at the CBC. If they want to be a leftist partisan, they can go at the private sector and work for, but not work for another broadcaster, but not at the CBC. So that's why I proposed during the leadership campaign a big reform of the CBC, cutting their budget, and asking the CBC to be like the PBS in the state, and people who want to give money to the CBC will be able to do that, and taxpayers won't be forced to give money to the CBC. So I was very disappointed at the CBC when that happened.
Yeah. Well, you are the first member of Parliament that I can remember to, in any serious fashion, challenge the CBC. That's another thing that I think the Conservative Party of Andrew Scheer is afraid of. I think they're afraid of talking about cultural issues, and I think they're terrified of offending the media party. But I think the CBC, Maxime, after that interview with you, I think they doubled down. Let me show you this quick clip of Paul Wells. He's from, I think he's still with Maclean's if they're still around. And he wasn't just attacking you now. He was mocking anyone who supports you. Look at this quick clip.
Look, there's no part of his stance on immigration and identity that is libertarian. He wants to lead a libertarian party, and he also wants to lead an anti-immigrant party. His supporters on Twitter seem to be that tiny Venn intersection of people who think it's great that Donald Trump is the president of the United States and people who think that Maxime Bernier would be like Donald Trump. You cannot have been paying much attention to Max Bernier over the last 20 years to entertain that fantasy very far. So basically, his voter base right now is the stupidest people on Twitter. And so we'll see how far that gets him.
No comment.
You know, it's one thing for him to disagree with you. That's fine. It's another thing for him even to insult you, and I suppose that's the price a politician pays. But I think the sneering scoffing at grassroots taxpayers and citizens, and the laughing at his own scoffing, and the other host there saying, well, no comment. I don't think the CBC knows what they look like to ordinary people. I think that they look imperious and condescending. And frankly, Maxime, if the CBC were to do that every single day, I think your support would grow just based on anger against the CBC.
You know, you have to, like I said during a press conference, I said, when I will see a fake news, I will call it a fake news. And Rosie, that was fake news. And the CBC, if they're doing that, they're not helping themselves. You know, it's people in in their tower in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. And I think other journalists who are working for the CBC in Moncton, in the region, they may be not like that, and they may be not proud of these people at the working with the CBC and not being fair with everybody.
I want to ask you just one last question, because you've stayed very long with us, and I know you have many things to do. But it is one last question about I'm using the CBC as an example, but I think it goes to a concept called deplatforming. And I'm not sure what the French term for that is. That's not debating your opponents. That's trying to marginalize them, ban them, censor them. And it's just, I want to show you, and you know what I'm talking about. This is Wendy Mesley, who used to be very prestigious at the CBC. She used to be an anchor, a newsreader. I think she was well regarded. She didn't have particularly strong opinions, but she has this new obscure show on Sundays that's really a conspiracy theory show from the left. And they took a run at you saying, you know, asking if you're funded by the Koch brothers, which of course would be illegal. It's such a bizarre question. It was a series of strange accusations, but I want to show you something really weird, because it references me, actually, and I just want to play it. Our viewers probably know what I'm talking about. I'd like your take on the new leftist approach of deplatforming and marginalizing opponents. Take a look at this.
But I do wonder if you've noticed that Rebel Media, for example, does seem to be fond of you. It's been accused, of course, of being supportive of white supremacist views. Ezra Levant, they have 1 million subscribers on YouTube, 150,000 followers on Facebook. Do you want his support? Do you want his audience?
I want people who believe in our ideas, and it can be people who are watching this show right now, people who are watching the Ezra Levant and the Rebel. It can be people who are watching Radio-Canada.
By the way, Maxime, I just want to tell you I'm not a white supremacist. I'm Jewish. In fact, our staff is of every race and background. It's so weird she would say that. And that sort of came out of the blue. Like, you weren't talking about the Rebel. You and I actually aren't even that close. I mean, I do like you, but we've actually had criticisms from our viewers that we haven't talked about you enough. So I don't even know what she's talking about there. I thought that was an attempt by the CBC to tell you who you should and shouldn't meet with, who you should and shouldn't talk with. The fact that we're a competitor of sorts to them makes it even more craven. But I think it's weird that it's an acceptable line of questioning. Don't talk to him, don't meet with them, for a journalist to say that. What do you make of that?
Because you're so good, Ezra, and you're a real competition for them. And I think they're afraid a little bit. But I don't know why other politicians are not going on your show. I don't know why Andrew Scheer is not going on your show. We know who you are. You're a credible, a proud Canadian, and you can be proud of what you're doing right now. It's a news broadcaster. You are all over Canada, and you have good guests and good people working with you. And yes, from different backgrounds, you can be proud of that. And, I said to the CBC at that time, if I receive an invitation, I will look at it. And as you know, I received the invitation and I'm with you, and I'm very proud to be with you. And you're doing a good job. I know that sometimes you'll be against me as a politician on an ideas, and the other time you'll be for it or not. But that's your job to do that, and I appreciate that.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate the compliments. I actually wasn't fishing for a compliment, but it was nice of you to offer it. I think you're right. I mean, we have criticized you. I personally said I would have wished for you to stay within the Conservative Party, and I gave my reasons, but you didn't. And so we're going to cover you as the news, and you can say what you want to our people. But I just thought it was odd that it feels like there's a little club, a little clique, both in politics and in the media, and you're not allowed to deviate from that little clique. And you have done both, Maxime. You've started your own party, and you talk to rough-hewn characters like me and the Rebels. So you've broken two rules in Ottawa. I'm grateful for your time today, and we've covered a lot of ground. Is there any other message that you would send to our viewers? Because I am going to email this video out to our people, because I think they'll find a lot of it interesting. They won't agree with all of it, but if you had one last message to say to our viewers, especially conservatives who feel like you should have stayed in the tent, what would your sales pitch be to them after all our discussion? If someone's paying attention now, what would you say to them to close the deal?
But first of all, I just want to say to you that for me, political correctness, it is finished, and we have to say what we believe. And what I'm saying to the Conservative who are staying with Andrew Scheer right now, and they're not ready to be a part of our party, just watch us and, look at our platform, read our platform, and you'll see that we are the real alternative, the real conservative alternative for this country. And I hope that we'll be able to have your support in the near future. And if you want to know what we believe in, go on the website of the People's Party of Canada.ca. You have the platform, and you'll be able to be a founding members also until the 1st of November. So be part of history, come with us, and all together we'll make this country great again.
Well, thank you very much, Maxime Bernier, founder of the People's Party. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I think you've given our viewers a lot to think about. And hey, I am glad that you come on The Rebel, because we are part of the national conversation just as much as Wendy Mansley is, and I appreciate you taking the time with our viewers. All the best to you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Ezra.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Maxime Bernier, what do you think of that interview? Let me know. Send me an email to ezra@therebel.media or leave your comments below. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show, weekdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Every day I do a monologue, interview a guest, and read my fan mail and my hate mail. To subscribe, go to therebel.media/shows.